So
Plastic. That's good.
I've never moderated a talk before, so I don't know what I'm doing, but what I
You'll
would
be
like to
fine.
say is I'm really happy to be here with these guys, and this film was really amazing. And what I wanted to talk about with the cinematography is the fact that it's so spectacular, and yet it never competes with the story. Some of these films these days, you see beautiful photography, but this one never competes with the story. It serves the story, it serves Alex as a character, and I just want to know, Jimmy, if you actually thought about that when you were doing the filming.
Yeah. Well, did we want to run the trailer first?
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Should we?
Like I said, I've never moderated before.
Okay. We'll run the trailer and then we'll
I
come
may
back to
never do
that
it
question.
again.
No, no. I think that's. Wow, we've never actually seen it that close before. That was-
So back to my question, Jimmy. Did you actually do you think? I mean, it's amazing, it's spectacular, but I don't think you watch this film and say to yourself, "Oh wow, the photography is really good." You just are into the story and you're into the human story, and I think that's wonderful about it. Did you think about that?
Well, we did. I think, there's the propensity in a lot of kind of outdoor genre filmmaking where it's really about the big camera moves and how much, you can, in a way, draw attention to how it's being filmed. And that's kind of a trend, I think, whether that's in snowboarding or skiing or climbing. But we always knew that the focus of the film was going to be the story, and we always knew that that was what was going to drive someone to watch a film for an hour and a half. It's just different. You can't carry a film for an hour and a half in a meaningful way if it's just amazing shot after amazing shot. But that being said, I mean, we were very focused on, we still were very focused on the cinematography, and it's kind of split into two spaces where there was our verite team, headed by Clair, and, well, Claire was the verite team, and Bob shot as well. And, Mikey was the high angle DP, and, was leading up that. And I don't know that we really specifically talked about it too much, but I think that we all knew that we wanted to shoot our classic, beautiful frames. If there were going to be moves, we'd, use them wisely and carefully in moments that we really felt were necessary. And, we did want to push the cinematography as much as we could. I mean, we, at least, Mikey and I have been probably collectively, I don't know, how many years have you been filming now?
Over 10.
Yeah. So I've probably been doing over 20. So, we wanted to take that collective experience and push the high angle cinematography, but it was always, really focused on nailing the shots in a beautiful way, but not drawing too much attention to it. And then there's a few shots in there, where we were really pushing for it, but.
Well, I've been doing it for 40 years, and I would have no idea how to shoot what you guys shot. Forgetting about the physicality of it, but just, did you have to choreograph it? I mean, did you have to really think about it? I'm used to shooting verite, where I just put the camera on my shoulder and I go run, and just whatever in the frame, that's how I'm reacting to it. But I'm sure you had to really plan this out. I think you would have to have planned it out. Yeah. How much extensive planning went into it?
Quite a bit of planning, I would say, for sure. I mean, on El Cap, and we can't just run around, like you said. If you're in an event, normally with a camera over your shoulder, yeah, you got to move around, you got to use your body as the zoom, and work around like the crowd. But yeah, on El Cap, it is much more limited at the speed that you can go. And then when you've got somebody like Alex, who is one of the fastest climbers in the world, so trying to keep up with him, I mean, there is a physical limit to what we were able to do. So we definitely choreographed, and we went up there beforehand and we're like, okay, these are the shots we're going to be able to get. We would always love to do more, but there was a reality to it. It was just like, okay, we got to get this one shot, and then it's just like move on and then sort of catch up. There was times that he would wait for us a little bit and, kind of be like, okay, I'm on a ledge, and he needs breaks as well. So we could Jumar ascend the ropes really, really quickly, get back in position, shoot a frame, he moves out of the frame, and then it's like hustle again. So there was moments of you were literally running as well. It's just a different space than I would say, you're used to working in, but.
Way different. And I just want to just follow up, because he was well aware of you, but you had to be really aware of not affecting him in any way. I mean, it was so dangerous up there. I mean, how did that affect how you filmed?
Well,
how much did you pull back, or what?
I think, it's actually probably, it was still verite, even though we were up there, right? And so that's always the balance of like, how do you interject yourself but not change the energy of the room or the conversation or, just the mood, right? I mean, you can ruin the mood when you walk in with a huge camera, or you can just get in there and nobody notices. And so it was the same sort of balance up there on El Cap with Alex, where it's just like, when could we interject ourselves in the appropriate spot and not, change his mood, not change his energy, but when did we really have to communicate what we're doing? And thankfully with Alex, we were such good friends and we've worked together for so long that I think that both Jimmy and I, and then as Claire spent more time with him, was able to learn like when it's sort of appropriate, when you can get closer, when you had to pull back. And then I think with, my climbing experience, with Jimmy's climbing experience up on the wall, like we knew the sections where it's just like, okay, we're gonna stand back here a little bit and shoot with a longer lens, zoom in. And then there's just also sections where physically he was more secure on the rock, and it was like, okay, we can get a little closer now. And so take those moments where we can get, definitely more personal.
Yeah, I remember when I showed up there and I was waiting and you guys came in from a day of shooting, and I didn't know any of you guys, and all I could hear you talk about was being terrified. And I thought to myself, I didn't even know what the film was about, actually. I just flew in, came in, and I'm thinking, what did these guys do this for a living? Why are they terrified? And I didn't understand what you were talking about. And will you talk a bit about the ethical problem, the dilemma really that you had in terms of filming this, what was happening in front of you?
Yeah, just to kind of keep things rolling.
Go ahead.
We should probably play a couple clips, and I think that this clip actually is kind of relevant to the questions about the ethics around it, but also about how we were shooting. So why don't we just roll that next clip? So there's 4 clips, and we'll kind of roll through them. Anyways, I think, is there a shot at the end of that clip? I think it shows
The crane, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, if not, that's okay. It's like the last 2 seconds of the clip. Okay. There's a crane shot at the end of it, basically that you could see the entire setup, and that's the introduction of the film. What's funny about the film is that we, Alex soloed some very significant climbs during the filming, just kind of in preparation for El Cap, and that would have on their own been pretty newsworthy, but they ended up not being, because, well, the production was done in secret, first of all, because of, so that there wouldn't be too much external pressure on Alex, like people talking to him, being like, oh, I heard you're, going to do a bit solo El Cap, and so the filming was done the production was done in secret, but that shot was the opening shot, and it's a route called the Excellent Adventure, and I think it was wasn't it the hardest free solo done to date in Yosemite?
Alex would need to verify that, but probably pretty close to it.
I think Alex is here. Are you here, Alex? Oh yeah, Alex is here. Was it? Yeah, I think it was. And it's a very difficult climb, and we're setting up to shoot this very difficult climb. But it was one of the few routes where we knew we could get a crane on top. And, the whole idea, Claire was operating, and the whole idea was like, we did want to move, but we wanted it very, very slow. But it kind of gets to the ethical question, because it was like, okay, we've got all of these people up on top. We've got this huge crane, and you're building it on a non-flat surface. I mean, it looks kind of flat, but it's rocky, and there's just a lot of opportunities where things could get dropped or fall off or tip over, or so those are the kind of issues that we were really thinking about, is whether or not just making sure that it was 100% safe. And that conversation was part of the overall conversation going into the film, was that we had to clearly set these guidelines for everybody, and ourselves included, not just the crew, but the directors and the producers and everybody. That was, Alex's safety is always going to be the #1 priority, and Alex's experience when he's climbing was also a priority. So it would be clear to everybody that the film's needs would never, overtake Alex's needs. And, it wasn't perfect, but, that was kind of the directive going into it. And that's how we framed our approach to making the film, because it was dangerous, and there were a lot of things that could have gone wrong.
It's a beautiful shot. I had no idea you did it, Claire.
Yeah, it was, and that was technically a pretty hard one to pull off. We had to source this 21-foot crane, that was kind of a prototype, and test it out, make sure it was safe, throw a gimbal on the end of it, get it into position on this thing, or we had to, basically climb up into position to set it up with all the weight, and then pull it off.
I kept thinking that you guys were using drones, actually. You didn't use any drones for this.
No.
But is that a shot that, I've never seen any other climbing films except Maru, which we can get into, but is that a shot that's been done before, or is that something you guys brought to it?
The crane shot?
Yeah.
I mean, there's only a few locations where you can physically get a crane in position, so it's rarely used. I mean, people have used cranes in climbing before. Not normally with this sort of high-end production, though. With, I don't know if we put the Alexa Mini. Yeah, we put an Alexa Mini on the end of it with a gimbal. Most climbing films prior to this don't have that sort of budget to, have such a great cinema package. So that was kind of unique, I would say, to this, that we had access to that sort of, equipment. So it did help.
So since this panel is about getting the shot, what went into the discussion? How did that idea, that shot come about? And how did you go from there to actually doing it?
Yeah.
Was it?
Well, a lot of it's dictated by what Alex wants to climb. So when he said that he wanted, one of his projects was the Excellent Adventure, I think Mikey and I were immediately like, that's one of the few places we can get a crane up there. And it's not even, you have to down climb with all the equipment and then climb back up this thing to put it in. So it's somewhat technical, not crazy, but we knew that it was one of the few places. The thing that's stressful about it, though, is that you're doing a very complicated shot, and Alex is soloing the hardest thing that's ever been free soloed in El Cap, and Mikey's down below. He was shooting Alex actually doing the hardest part of the climb, which poor Mikey had to do that a few times, and then we had people. I was over on another wall shooting back in, and then we had someone across the valley shooting another long lens angle, and then a couple cameras, fixed on the route. So there's just a lot of planning that needs to go into it, and setting up, but all knowing, there's that tension of, well, Alex and he's already climbed, how many feet?
I don't know, 700 feet or so.
Yeah, 700 feet of, fairly difficult climbing to get there that we're not even filming, and we're just filming this upper pitch, and he's already climbed, 700 feet.
It just opens so beautifully, and the reveal is so beautiful. And I guess you really didn't have any. Did you know what it was going to look like? Did you rehearse it, or did you just go with it?
I mean, when he was lower on the route, we swung the crane out a bunch of times, looked at lens sizes, kind of rehearsed what we thought. I had little joysticks to control the gimbal and figured it out. But when when it's game time, it's a whole different thing.
A spectacular shot, really.
Yes, high pressure.
Did you want to show another clip, Jimmy? Or
Yeah. Oh, one other thing too is when you're doing a shot like that, you only get one take, so it's pretty high pressure. I remember the moment because Claire will look over and I'll be like, "Did you get it?" He'll be like, "I got it. I got it. I think I got it." Well, no, he doesn't say "I think I got it." He always says, "I got it." Yeah. Why don't we show the next clip, which is more of kind of a little bit more of behind the scenes, where you can see how we're actually moving. Well, yeah. That's a fun one to watch. So,
I just want to say, in the other clip, more than in this clip, the tight shots of the hands and the feet. I just love just this intimacy about that, and a real feeling that you get. It obviously doesn't have the breadth and the beauty of the other shots, but it keeps it on that human level, which I really love. The physicality that you guys have to do this, and how much weight were you carrying up there?
Ooh, I think that camera is close to 25 pounds or something like that, all built out. And then you throw a harness on, our Jumars, aiders. I mean, our packs hiking up were often 45 pounds or so. So yeah, a tremendous amount of weight. And I've been climbing on El Cap since I was 15. So I had a lot of experience. I had over 20 years of experience climbing on El Cap, and same with Jimmy. And I don't think there's any way we could have done that without that much experience. There's just no way. That sort of terrain to us is just normal. It's just walking down the sidewalk. It feels very, very comfortable up there for us these days. But definitely without that sort of comfort, there's no way we could have been moving around in that environment, and we would have been too worried about ourselves. And thankfully, we weren't. It was we could focus on the job at hand.
And Claire, you came in. You obviously came in later in the film, and you're in great shape. But what was it like? Was it intimidating being around these guys who are just in this amazing? They're not really part of the human race.
They're professional athletes. So it's, when you're the only person on the crew who's not a professional athlete, it's definitely intimidating. I think Chai told me ahead of time, was you don't have to feel like you need to keep up, And so a month out, I started running and hiking more, and I kind of casually have climbed for about 7 years, and everyone would be like, "Oh, do you climb?" I'd be like, "No, I don't climb." Around these people. But yeah, it was difficult for sure.
Yeah. I remember the moment in Morocco when we were all hiking to this location, and Claire was cranking, and I was like, "Oh, you're doing a great job." And then we turned up this hill to go, I think it was 2,000 or 3,000 vertical feet.
Yes, first day out, and I'm like, "Oh, we'll see if I can keep up." We got 32-pound pack with a camera. We're going through this terrain where it's you're just hiking, but if you fall, you're not going to come back. It's just sheer drops. And I'm feeling pretty good, and we're little uphills. We're going flat, and I'm like, "All right, cool, this training worked." And then we go this part where it's this talus field, and you just switch back up. I said, 1,000, 2,000 feet. And they just maintain the same tempo, and I'm just, okay. And I'm like, who can I get my pack to, And they're just keep going, and I'm like, yeah, this is where it shows.
Yeah, I just remember you watching Mikey, and you're like, no way. He's going the same speed as he was going on the flats, but he's going. But Claire was amazing, and, he traveled through a lot of terrain with us. But I do want to point out that, especially for, other DPs or filmmakers, that, the crew was dropping in with thousands of feet of rope, and they don't have an AC or a focus puller, and they're doing their own rigging pretty much. So it was really incredible to have a team be able to move like that, and that was, of course, intentional. Like the first criteria for the high angle team was that you had to be a professional climber. So it was Shane Lempe and Mikey kind of heading up that team. And, Shane has a speed record on El Cap, and Mikey's put up first ascents all over Yosemite and climbed all over the world. And so it was that kind of experience that you needed to be able to do this. But I think also really important for Alex, to feel confident that there was a team that was 100% dialed, because there's nothing that kind of, I guess it's also important to say that when I say professional climbers, we all also understand what it feels like to be filmed and what it feels like when you're around a crew that isn't very confident or doesn't know what they're doing. It really can take away from the experience. And so I think that having a crew that could just move that quickly and that efficiently and that safely, hopefully it made Alex's experience a lot more pure, or not a lot less stressful.
And there's a parallel to that. We haven't seen the Verite clip yet, but there's a parallel to what, Claire, you did in shooting the intimate moments with Alex and his girlfriend, which wasn't physically the same, but it depended on you developing trust with Alex and him trusting you and his girlfriend trusting you to get, yes, Jimmy.
Oh, no, keep going.
Oh, okay.
But that clip is next.
Okay, so let's watch it,
yeah,
and then we
let's
can
watch
go into that. A little bit about. And I know how difficult it is. I mean, here you are in a tight little van, truck, with two people in a very intimate moment. And it's a beautiful scene. You captured them. Sometimes those scenes can seem so, awkward. And those scenes can be awkward unless you build trust with the characters. I was wondering, did you have a moment, I'm guessing in Morocco, where you and Alex sort of bonded? And the only thing I can connect it to is I'd been filming Metallica for months, and James Hetfield still called me the camera guy. Until I got into this hot rod with him, that he had this, it was just a bucket. I forget what it was called. It's just like a bucket. And his stick shift was this giant thing with a sword at the end of it. So if you got into a car accident, it would just go through your head. And after that, I was Bob, And I was just wondering if you had this moment with Alex where all of a sudden he bonded with you and trusted you, and which made it possible for you to get these kind of scenes later on.
I think it's definitely a process. I first met Alex on an airplane on the way to Morocco, and I was awkwardly filming him on the plane while he was asleep or just doing whatever, getting all these crazy looks. And I think he was definitely on the fence probably. And then I made a lot of really terrible puns and jokes, as I do. And I remember at a certain point he was like, "Oh, you're totally a nerd. Cool." And I think it built from there. And a big part of, as capturing verite scenes is developing that trust and patience. And in terms of telling the scene, being able to anticipate how people are going to be and learning their kind of rhythms in terms of how they interact emotionally with other people. So yeah, developing trust, and I consider Alex a good friend at this point, was really kind of integral to being able to tell the story in the verite moments.
I believe, when I started doing this way back when, there was a conceit among verite filmmakers was that you became a fly on the wall. There's no way you're a fly especially in a van, where you're a fly on the wall with a camera and a sound man. Just doesn't happen. What I think really happens once you develop trust, the character realizes that they're not just like a bug under a microscope, but they're actually telling their story, and they're using you to tell their story. And for you, Jimmy, is there a moment when you felt like Alex gets this, now he's telling his story, or was it that way right from the beginning?
I don't think it was that. I think when Alex decided to work, be a part of the film or be in the film, he already made the decision to trust us and how we were going to make the film. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, Alex, but a few times he's mentioned that he trusted that if we needed a camera there, then we needed a camera there because we're the filmmakers and we supposedly know what we're doing. But the beautiful thing I saw was just, we brought Clair into this project for a reason, not only because he's an incredible shooter, but because of the way that he can carry himself and the way that he interacts with people. And then, I think that Alex and Clair both had a sense of mutual respect for what each other did and does, and that goes a really long ways. And this scene, just to give it a little context, I mean, this is one of my favorite scenes in the movie, probably more than the climbing, because it's this moment, this pivot when, everybody, including the audience and the production crew, knows Alex is going to go try and solo El Cap the next day. And Sani still doesn't know, And it's just this, like, the moment and the tension in it, and the way it's shot is really a tribute to Clair's talent.
It's beautifully shot. It's very intimate. It's very real.
And it's a very tense moment.
It's a tense moment, but it's beautifully done. It's beautifully the way it's done. I don't know how much time we have left, so I'm going to jump to the end because Clair, the scene when Alex comes up to the top, I guess you shot that, I assume. I know for me, waiting for a moment like that I hate it. I'd rather be filming, and something amazing happens. But to wait for him to come up the mountain and then get up there, and then, I don't know, did you have a sense that this was a historic moment? My heart would have been beating in the only thing I can relate it to is like when the sentence came down in Paradise Lost, and all of a sudden I had to film this moment that we've been waiting for. My heart it was like Telltale Heart. My heart was like my whole body was shaking and I got that sense, I felt like I was there with you. It's just so beautifully captured, and just what was going through your head.
I mean, I was really excited for Alex. Once he got through some of the harder parts, I was kind of like, we were all super confident from the get-go that he was gonna execute, But yeah, that sense of waiting is kind of a killer. It's just you're sitting there like, oh man, I hope I nail this. Because I remember the night before, Jimmy and Shai had asked me, like, do you want someone up there to shoot with you and help? And I was like, no, I got it. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, I better get this, Like, where's he actually going to come up? Alex has a way of just, like, moving his own pace and surprising you. So there's a lot of anticipation. And, yeah, I was excited and interacted with him.
You felt comfortable enough to talk to him in that moment.
Yeah, I was just so excited. Everyone was. And,
well, that's a decision you make, right? You realize you're breaking the wall, and but it's a really nice moment. And it takes that scene up a level, the fact that you did interact with him.
I just have to add something to how many people here have seen the film? Just out of curiosity. Okay. So, everybody knows Alex is here, so.
I'm sorry.
He climbed El Cap with
I
a
guess
rope,
that was a
without rope.
spoiler, but I assumed everybody.
No, I assume so too. I'm like, it's okay to go in there. It's much better going in there knowing it's not good going into the movie not knowing that he makes it. But when we were watching the dailies from the last day, of course we were all anticipating, Alex summiting and having this like glorious moment and him like bursting into tears or something really dramatic happening. And Alex gets to the top and he looks at the camera and he says, oh, I'm so delighted, right? After all of this stuff. And Chai is just mortified. She's like, that doesn't really work for an ending. It's like, he's like, I'm so delighted, and everybody's like, that's it? And Clair, turns her and says, no, don't worry. I followed him down the trail and he says, I love you. And this is the beauty of working with great people, because I remember Alex taking off, and we were all, we've been waiting for this moment for 2 years, and we're all emotional. We're kind of caught up in the moment, and Claire looks at me. He's like, I should probably go, run down the trail with him as well. And in my mind, I was like, I just didn't know if it was 100% worth it, but, because Alex moves very quickly, and it was going to be shaky cam, and I was like, but, that's when you trust Claire's instincts, and he's like, I'm going to go. And I was like, okay, great. And he runs down the trail, and he catches that moment when Sani calls him, and, that was kind of the most beautiful moment in the film. And he gets up, and he's walking down the trail, and he finally says, "I love you" on the phone, and we were, that makes the movie, and we're always so thankful that Claire got that.
And Mikey, you're sort of, in a way, the heart of the film. You're down. I thought you guys were using long lenses because you wanted not be so close to Alex. But then I heard that you hurt yourself, and that's why you were down shooting on a long lens.
Yeah, I mean, I was the high-angle DP, and in the film, I'm the guy shooting down in the meadow, who's not even looking at the camera. Failed my job miserably. I tore my ACL just a few weeks before he went to do it, and so actually just me getting to the meadow was somewhat challenging. I was just off crutches, so yeah, I could not go on El Cap. But I mean, we also did want a long lens. I mean, just to be able to document the start to the finish, have all 4 hours on it. And it was kind of ironic. So when you're on the wall, like when he was soloing, I mean, he's moving so fast that nobody spent that much time with him, because he would climb by fixed cameras or different camera operators. So most people only had to watch him for, I don't know, a few minutes, 10 minutes at most. Like that was it. It was like he's up and out. And so, but being down in the meadow, I actually had to watch more or less all 4 hours of it. Which, I mean, I think I was more scared than anybody else. That was kind of my worst nightmare, is to actually have to spend 4 hours watching this. So yeah, tearing the ACL was, I mean, I think it was good for the film. Then I was able to be in it and kind of able to relate well to the audience, I think. But then, yeah, personally, I had to watch way too much of it.
But you're sort of the heart and soul when you're watching it. I think all the viewers are there with you, watching it and feeling what you're feeling. And I just think it's wonderful. That I hope your ACL is better, but I think it worked out well for the film.
Yeah, I actually went for a 6-mile run with Jimmy, and this is the first time I've ran since I tore it this morning, so it's getting there. But yeah, so I mean, I've heard this a lot from people after the showings. They come up and like, "Wow, I could really relate. You were unable to watch it," and he's like, yeah. I mean, it kind of plays like a horror film, right? I mean, when I watch a horror film, I mean, it's like a very similar experience to how I was like shooting this film. It was like, oh, I can't actually watch. So yeah, I mean, I think very relatable.
I think she came over for the Q&A. Do we have any time for that? Should we do that?
Yeah.
I can
Oh,
wait.
there's another clip.
Yeah, we could do. Why don't we shoot one? Yeah, go ahead. This is the enduro.
Were you aware at the beginning that was also going to be part of the story, or was that something that you're like, oh my God, the backstory of filming this film is also so interesting that you kind of put that in, or like you just had, I guess you were also filming each other while you were concentrating on Alex trying to climb it. Like, how did that work?
Yeah.
A little bit.
No, well, when we went into the film, we were not thinking of including the filming story within it. That's always, we always feel like that's a little self-indulgent, or however you want to think about it. But, we did shoot a little bit of each other filming, and actually, normally we shoot a lot more behind the scenes. And we just didn't have the capacity because everybody was so busy, and the shots of Mikey is our sound guy shooting Mikey, you know. I mean, everybody's shooting everything at that point. But, and then when we went into the edit, we had like this bin that was kind of like the behind the scenes stuff, and it was kind of like the no touch bin. But as we started to cut the film, I mean, it became very apparent that, you know, it was kind of it'd almost be dishonest not to talk about it, because there was this major kind of challenge around the ethics of filming it, and how also the crew was really, you know, it was his friends, and there was a kind of an emotional thread there, as well as the fact that it was the whole production was in secret, so there wasn't really anybody to kind of show a reaction from, and it was really the crew that became that part of the story. So we tried to be, you know, very careful with how we used it, and it's only used for, you know, kind of dealing with that specific issue around the ethics of the filming, and then also as a reaction, so people could kind of have permission to feel, you know, what a viewer was feeling.
Yeah, I had a question about style. You kind of talked a little about it. Was there a bit of a style guide at the starting that you decided that you were going to shoot a certain way with certain lenses, and or you weren't going to shoot a certain way? Could you explain a little more about that?
I think we chose our shooters also because of the way that they do shoot. And did we really talk about that much, Mikey?
Well, I mean, if you like the specific cameras and lenses, I mean, we used a C300 Mark II, and then we used an Alexa Mini, and that was sort of talked about, you know, why we chose those cameras and those lenses. Part of it was just a function thing. I think we used the Canons due to their reliability, their size, the quality for a verite camera for on the wall. I think it was the best thing going. And then, yeah, built-in audio, everything about it, the battery life. I mean, perfect camera for shooting on the wall. And then we paired those with Canon lenses, again, reliable. If we did break them or drop them or beat them up, you know, it wasn't like, oh, another insurance claim. So there is the reality of that, right? Of like, okay, we can't just be, you know, beating up a $30,000 cinema lens every time we go on El Cap. So being able to use those Canon lenses. But then Claire preferred to shoot with an Alexa Mini.
Yeah, I like to use the Mini just because, you know, we're doing a lot of harsh environments, and the dynamic range on that camera is so good. So it allows you to get away with a little bit more. And also you could put a Canon lens mount, and I could swap lenses. I did drop a lens at one point on, you know, I was only 8 feet up, but it wasn't a huge thing, you know. But then, you know, we also had a set of like Cine Prime, so we could give it a cinematic look for our interviews and our more curated approach stuff. And I think we all had like the 17 to 120 zooms, so we could really like, it's a great verite lens and just kind of capture things. We had a whole selection of stuff.
Yeah, but it's one thing though is that Chai, you know, was working with Claire and saw how he was, you know, all of his work looking at dailies on other projects, and so she was the one that brought Claire on as our verite DP, and then, you know, Mikey and I have shot on a lot of projects, and in fact, when it's really, really like a serious, heavy shoot where the stakes are very high or it's very complicated, you know, Mikey's the first person that I call. And so I've also seen a lot of his shooting, but even more so in some ways, you know, Mikey is kind of like the commander, like the sheriff too, you know, I mean, he runs the logistics, he knows how to, you know, especially on El Cap, but really on any kind of mountain terrain, you know, Mikey and I are always kind of figuring out how to do things, and he's, you know, I chose him for a specific reason, both shooting and for how he can manage that whole crew.
Hello, thank you for your amazing work. I'm the perfect guinea pig audience person for your film because I've never rock climbed, knew nothing about it, have seen the film, want to go see it several more times, however many times I can. So my question is, as a filmmaker, I am a filmmaker, and I really appreciate the level of experience that all of you brought on to this project, how your experience enabled you to make it, just like, you know, nobody else could have climbed that mountain besides Alex. That's a superlative, but I feel the same way about the crew. Like, no one else could have made this film. And my question is, what can you share with us is your takeaway from this experience for your next experience, as your experiences before this have informed and enabled you to do this one? What would you tell us you took away from this one for the next one?
I mean, I guess my probably biggest takeaway was getting to work with Clair. I had never shot in, I guess, like the classical verite form, and getting to watch Clair and even the brief time we had with Bob, like the way they interact with the subject, the intimacy, the trust that they built, just the way they got in there, it gave me the confidence to do the same thing, and to be like, okay, I'm here for a reason. I need to do my job. And I've always been a little timid as a shooter, you know, not wanting to get in the athlete's way. And part of that's due to a lot of the situations I've been in where it's like I physically can't get in their way, or it could put them at risk. And so I was always a little removed from the situation, I feel like. But after watching these guys, it was like, oh, okay, now I need to, like, you know, kind of inject myself in here, but then again, not change the energy. And I think it adds such an element to the film, right? I mean, we're so connected to the characters because we were connected to the characters. And so I mean, I definitely hope the next project I get to work on, I get to, like, bring that skill that I learned, you know, from these guys to that. So for me, that's definitely the biggest takeaway.
Yeah, I mean, that being said, you picked it up. You were just, you know, anytime I needed a second camera, I'd just be like, hey, Mikey, I need help with this verite stuff. And he'd have just spent like 8 or 10 hours in the wall. He'd just, yeah, sure, come on, do it. I was like, man, I feel bad. But no, the biggest takeaway for me is just reinforcing that you're only as good as the team you're working with. You know, I can capture some nice verite footage, but you've got to have a great sound guy to do it. You've got a good, you know, AC or DIT handling it. And these guys nailing things in the wall that I can't even imagine shooting. And you need all those successful elements of teamwork to make a good film. And that just, I mean, this really reinforced that because it's such a kind of unique experience, I think.
I have just follow up with you, Mikey. I thought of this. Could you ever imagine shooting a non-climbing film? I think you have the heart of a verite cameraman, and I just wondered whether you could imagine doing it.
If I never have to shoot another climb again in my life, I'd be just fine with that. I am so good with it. I mean, I have spent so long doing it, and Jimmy and I always joke, to me at this point, it's just man on rock. It's like, oh, that's great. That looks really pretty. It's another man on the rock. And so, you know, I mean, I think actually often Claire and I, there was moments where it's like, do you want to just switch jobs here for a little while? I mean, like, really, we talked about that. It was just like, I'm going to do the verite. You get to go on the wall. So, I mean, I really do hope that my next project has nothing to do with climbing. Yeah, I mean, I think I want to tell stories outside of climbing. I've known climbing for so long and so well that there's not a lot of stories I feel like I don't know in it. And so, but there's so many other stories out there in the world. And so I definitely hope I get to, go help tell those stories soon.
Did you say, yeah, why don't we do one more question?
Thank you, first of all, for your incredible job, guys. And I want to thank Alex for agreeing to be in this movie. And I mean, as a filmmaker, I always admire of the people whom we able to film. And we have such an opportunity to hear from Alex now. And I wanted to know what he is thinking about the documentary and whether it was distraction for him to fill the crew next to him, or to you, I'm sorry, or it's actually helped you to reach your goal. And what's are you going to do next?
Do you actually want me to respond?
A lot, if it's possible. Maybe you can come.
Gotta stand
here
up, though.
And,
I mean, I guess the short answer is just that, yeah, the filmmaking wasn't too distracting. Actually, I don't even throw another question. What was
It was distracting for you to fill the crew next to you, or it's actually helped
climbing, I'm like, this is so awesome. But I mean, it's funny what Jimmy was saying is one of his favorite scenes with the scene with Sonny and I in the van. That's like definitely one of my least favorite scenes. That's horrible. You know, I'm like, oh man. Yeah, but you know, I mean, the thing is, it's such an honest look at my life for the last 2 years, and obviously there are things that are good, things that are bad, things that are really bad. You know, but that's what happens when you lay out 2 years of your life. It's like for better or for worse. But, anyway, yeah, thanks guys.
Thank you.